The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation building series, The Law and You. This is program number 996. And it is coming to you on Monday, the 8th of March, 2021. On this program, I will speak to you on the topic, to be or not to be. But before getting into the topic, two short preliminaries. Beginning first with condolences, I'd like to send out my deepest condolences to all families which have suffered recent bereavements. And in that connection, one family in particular of Rockies, the Hamilton family, on the loss of Garvey Hamilton. One of the persons I grew up with at Rockies as a youngster. We played cricket on the road together, football, pan-a-pan. We went to Sion Hill Beach together. And let me say a special word to his sister, Rosalind Harry, the wife of former Commissioner William Harry. Rosalind, Brother Garvey has gone. He was such a lively person in the olden days at Rockies, one of the pillars of the Rockies community. And Miss Ona, his mother, your mother, would have been proud of him. My hope is that the Lord will give you the strength to cope with that bereavement. Secondly, today is International Women's Day. And I would like to salute all the women of the nation. And I'm associated with some of them. I am married to one. I have, I have helped produce 4 of them. And I, of course, came from one, namely my beloved mother. So to all you women, I hope you have had a significant day. I know in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, women are in the ascendancy in terms of the professions. Of course, in politics since the 1980s, when Mr. Mitchell became Prime Minister of St. Vincent and Grenadines, women have been catapulted to the front of the national administration. Mr. Mitchell made it his business to appoint a woman as cabinet secretary, a woman as the accountant general, a woman as the chief personnel officer in the form of Mrs. Griffith, and several permanent secretaries in ministries were women. Mr. Mitchell used to say to us in cabinet that he prefers to have females in senior positions rather than males. And one of his simple reasons, he used to tell us, if you give 2 persons an assignment, one to a woman and one to a man, the woman will bring back results at the appointed time. The man is most likely to bring back excuses. So Mr. Mitchell believed in women, and throughout the years, we have seen the public service flourish in St. Vincent and Grenadines, where now the majority of senior positions in the public service are held by women, and I congratulate all of them. You get a good woman to do a job, and the job will be well done. All right? Now, I know that the society has a long way to go towards dealing with some of the major women's issues, particularly domestic violence and violence against women on the whole. That we really have to get serious about, because there are still too many instances of men being violent towards women. I have my ideas. I do believe that, for one thing, the punishments are too lenient. On the whole, these days in the criminal justice system, the trend is to make punishments lighter and lighter and lighter, so that you wonder if the time will not come when people would just be smiled upon and frowned upon and given a chastising word as punishment. But that topic is for another day. Today, we deal with another topic, that of the COVID-19 pandemic. I call it the pestilence. So I apologize to Brother William Shakespeare for twisting the first line of one of his most famous quotations. The authentic quotation is, of course, to be or not to be. That is the question. And I've taken a little liberty and done a little punning on Shakespeare. So the topic tonight is to be or not to be. What is that be? Well, I'm sure everybody knows by now that V stands for vaccination. Seems to me one of the hottest topics in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and elsewhere nowadays is the question as to whether persons should take or not take one of the available vaccines which have been developed by the scientists to cope with the pandemic. Well, I am in a peculiar category of persons in that I have been a serious medical patient for the past little over 7 years. And since I took my surgery in Philadelphia, open heart surgery, I have endured literally hundreds of jabs. I have had to take several tablets every day of my life, some in the day, some in the night. And for those of you who frowned upon the fact that the AstraZeneca vaccine is made in India, that's no problem with me, because some of the tablets I take every day of my life and which help to keep me alive are made in India. But I'll get back to that. So those of us who have been patients, medical patients, know that our best course of action is to follow the advice of our doctors. When our lives have been saved by doctors and are being prolonged by doctors, I mean, the Holy Spirit working through the medical profession, then nobody has to tell us to put our faith and trust in the very doctors who have saved our lives or who have been instrumental in prolonging our lives. When the pandemic broke in 2020, the first question which people are asking internationally was, how soon can the scientific community develop a vaccine to deal with that pandemic? And there was speculation. Some said it will take years. Some said no, it will be much shorter because The scientists have been dealing with the coronavirus for over 12 years. And in that time, there have been experiments continuously in various laboratories around the globe into the question of developing an effective vaccine to counter the effects of the coronavirus. It is just that because the disease broke out and spread so fast throughout the world last year, that the scientific community redoubled and trebled its efforts. And the race was off in various laboratories around the world by persons who already had a lot of knowledge about the characteristics of the coronavirus. So it isn't that a vaccine was suddenly developed in the last year. No. Vaccines for coronaviruses have been in the making since for the last 12 years. It is just that we are fortunate that resources have been put by various governments and by international organizations into research and development on an accelerated scale. In these last few months, resulting in the rolling out of several vaccines, and I don't intend to go into them because I'm not qualified to describe the various vaccines available, but we know some of them by name. We've heard of the Moderna, the Sputnik, the AstraZeneca, and so on and so on. We must say in passing, thanks to the government and people of India, and they have made thousands of the vaccines available to third world countries, millions in fact, of which we in the Caribbean have been some of the beneficiaries. So that right now, in most countries of the world, there are active programs of trying to make the vaccine available to as many persons in the population as possible. In some places, the vaccines are in short supply and they have to wait. In other places, like St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we apparently have enough quantities of the vaccine to last us for the time being, and we are expecting more and more shipments. So our question in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not one of supply. We have ample supplies. Our question really is one of demand, whether there are enough people willing to be vaccinated. And that is what I want to speculate about in this program, because I've heard the various commentary. And then, of course, I know that over the years, some people have been skeptical of vaccines of whatever variety. Excuse me. I recall years ago, a group of intentions took it upon themselves to publicize anti-vaccination theories, because You recall when the Education Act was passed in 1992, one of the policies adopted by the former government and continued by the ULP government was to insist that children receive immunization as a condition of being admitted to primary schools. And parents who refused to have their children vaccinated had to make alternative arrangements for the education of their children, because the authorities said, and quite rightly in my view, that if some children are to be vaccinated and they are mixing and mingling with other unvaccinated children, they could be affected by ailments given to them by those who are not vaccinated. And some people came out and said, no, vaccination is against this and against that and bad for you, and don't let your children receive vaccination. But by and large, their voices were ignored. So we have it now that automatically we have our children vaccinated. I remember when I was growing up in Barely as a little child, there was a serious incidence of things like yaws, measles. We had measles almost every year. And for those who don't know what measles is, your skin would become scaly and white and itch and scratch all over the place. Other diseases which over the years you don't hear about these days. Who has heard recently about mumps and measles and yaws and those sorts of things? They have all been eradicated, including things like smallpox, because of the use of vaccine therapy. So the term vaccination is nothing new to us. What is important these days is the anti-COVID vaccinations. Now, I have taken, as I've told you before, the AstraZeneca vaccine. My wife and I went a few Sundays ago in the Bocoment Polyclinic and got our first shot of the vaccine. We are due to go back in due course very shortly for our second shot. Some of the vaccines which have been developed are one-shot vaccines. You get one shot and that's it. You don't have to go back a second time. But others, you have to get 2 shots. Now, the procedure is very simple. And I can honestly tell you that you hardly feel anything. The nurse takes your pressure. She takes your temperature. And if all is in order, because I believe if your pressure is extremely high, she would tell you, no, you have to wait until your pressure gets down a bit before you can get the vaccine. Similarly, if your temperature is extremely high, the nurse may tell you, well, you're not eligible to get the vaccine. But assuming your temperature and your pressure are in normal ranges, she will wipe a spot on your arm, usually the upper left arm, and chat with you, because it's one of the techniques of the medical profession that when they give you an injection, they chat with you to distract your attention a little bit so you wouldn't feel the choke. And then she administers the needle. Now, you hardly, believe you me, people, you hardly feel anything. It's not painful at all. Even in the context of somebody like me, I am diabetic. I take insulin, usually twice a day, which means I push a needle into my body twice a day. And if you see, the insulin needles are about 3/4 of an inch long. At first, it's difficult to administer to yourself. But after a while, and I've been doing this now for several years, it comes like child's play. You hardly feel anything, just a little discomfort, a little choke, as we would say. So that getting any of the anti-COVID vaccines nowadays is almost painless. As to side effects, the data has revealed that very few people have any side effects of any significance. They tell you, you might get a little coughing, slight fever in the day or two after, slight discomfort. If you feel those things, they tell you what tablets to drink, usually paracetamol, and then you're good to go. But the people who are anti-vaccine oriented will spread rumors that, some people, if they heard so-and-so died after taking the vaccine and therefore they're not taking none. Well, that is an unfortunate attitude, because the time is coming, and if you listen to the international news and the international discussions among the health people and so on, the time is coming, and I'm talking about in the next few months, before the end of this year, 2021, when you will not be able to travel to another country unless you can show that you have been vaccinated or you have an exemption because of some medical problems. And I'm not saying that there are some people who will be reluctant to take the vaccine based on medical reasons, because things peculiar to you, if you have particular allergies, if you are pregnant or likely to become pregnant, you may have justifiable reasons to hesitate. But you would not be able to travel unless you are able to show not just that you are COVID negative, but that you have been vaccinated. And it's going to begin with the airlines. The airlines are going to very soon, in my view, when enough people have been vaccinated around the world, they're going to make it a condition of boarding an aircraft that you present a certificate to show that you have been vaccinated. Of course, even before you reach the plane, passing through the local authorities, they will make sure that you are negative before you can get on board, vaccine or no vaccine. Therefore, we are entering a phase in our lives, the way that we were first reluctant to wear masks, and now everybody is wearing a mask. Well, the time will come when we'll get accustomed to even the very things we tend to abhor at this moment. Now, if you listen carefully to the Prime Minister, he hasn't come out plain and said that. But if you listen to him carefully, as I do, well, whenever the Prime Minister speaks, I listen. to what he is saying, and the Prime Minister has a way he's very precise with his expressions. He is hinting that until sufficient numbers of Vincentians have become vaccinated, the restrictions which have been imposed by the authorities in the form of health protocols will not be eased, or to put it a positive way, these restrictions will only be eased when sufficient numbers of us have been vaccinated. So the quicker the authorities can vaccinate most of the population, the quicker we will have an end to these restrictions. I mean, and I don't have to tell you the difficulties we suffer from having these restrictive practices imposed on us for our own good. I am happy to see that the restrictions were eased in terms of churches, because I always felt that it was a bit harsh to tell the authorities of a big church like St. George's Cathedral or the Methodist Church that they must only have 10 people in the church. Now they have said 1/3 of the normal capacity of the church, and that is reasonable. But I'm sure we all are looking forward to the time when you can go to church in whatever numbers you want to, where children will be freely going to school, where you wouldn't have to wear a mask when you go in a store or in a public building, where you'll be able to shake hands once again and hug once again and mingle with relatives once again. I'm sure we're looking forward to that. But that is not going to happen unless a certain number of us have been vaccinated. So to answer the question, to V or not to V, to get vaccinated or not to get vaccinated, my own inclination would be to advise as many persons as possible, unless you have some underlying health condition and your doctor tells you, look, be careful, I'm not going to recommend that you get the vaccine. Unless that is the case, go and make available to yourself the protection offered by one of the many vaccines which are available free of charge. Go and get vaccinated. Don't let anybody fool you into believing that it is okay. Better be safe than sorry. So, to V or not to V, you go and get vaccinated. And my congratulations to all of us who have already gone and either had our first dose, or in the case of the 1-dose vaccinations, who have been vaccinated. And thanks to the hard-working authorities, our doctors, nurses, medical personnel, thank you for the work you've been doing. And thanks to government for arranging these free vaccination exercises. All right, so that is all from this program with Law and You. I apologize that I was not able to be with you live in the last 2 Mondays, but here goes. Hope everything will be okay. I was just extremely busy in the last 2 Mondays. Until next Monday, Diffie, do have a pleasant week, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, and may the good Lord continue to bless us all.
The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC, and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.